Now look, I know right now Habs Nation is frustrated, okay? Another loss to the Ottawa Senators yesterday. And you guys know one of my favorite pastimes is after a Habs loss to look through the comments. Because Habs fans, we know how passionate they are, how into their team they are. Probably the most storied and historic franchise in the NHL. There's some really passionate things said, especially on Twitter, man. And I see a lot of people in the comments, yesterday especially, yearning, calling, begging for a number one center. Now, of course, everybody right now is on the fire Julien bandwagon. Everybody wants Julien out. But after that, there are going to be some changes that have to be made to this personnel. Okay? Of course, we know that almost every year the Habs tend to have somewhat of a down in play, okay? Like they start the season well, or they go through a stretch of playing really well, and then they just nosedive. And if you think about it, who was the last number one center that the Habs had that was truly a star? Okay, I'm not talking about like a Saku Koivu. I love Saku Koivu. He was like the first Hab I ever loved. But Saku Koivu was never what Jack Eichel is right now in the NHL. Nick Suzuki maybe one day could get close to that, but again, it's going to take time at the very least. And even a few years back when the Habs were really good, going far in the playoffs, who was their number one center? David Desharnais? In the past few years, it's been Philippe Danault who's been getting those number one center assignments and those minutes, but clearly that is not an option this season. And every game that he plays, it's looking less and less likely that he's going to sign with the Montreal Canadiens. And I bet you he probably cries every night before going to sleep that he didn't sign that contract extension that Bergevin put on the table for him. You guys told to me in the comments, but I forgot the exact numbers. I think it was 6 years for $5 million per year. If that's what it was, man, Danault is not going to get anywhere near that now on the open market, not even close. And that's where you look at a guy like Jack Eichel. Because, look, I know the Buffalo Sabres, a nice 4-1 win for them yesterday, but look at this team, and you cannot tell me that Jack Eichel is not going to be wanting a trade after the end of the season, maybe even during this season with how poorly this team plays. One win is not going to change how the Buffalo Sabres look for the entire season, okay? They're still at the bottom of their division, and they do not look good. Everyone looks like a corpse every time they play. I watch them play. I want to like them, but even guys like Taylor Hall, he's struggling, right? And Eichel, his whole career, Jack Eichel, has not had a superstar to really play with. The closest thing he's had is Taylor Hall, who right now looks like a shell of his former self. Like, Sam Reinhart's a good player, Victor Olofsson's a decent player, right? Like, these are the guys that Eichel's had to be with. And in Montreal, it's not going to be too different, but look, we know he's got somewhat of a taste for the bright lights. The third video I'm making on Eichel, you guys have heard me say that, okay? The front runners for him are the New York Rangers and the Los Angeles Kings. And we did hear a mention that he does like Montreal. Now, I know that that's not some huge monumental news. Oh my God, Eichel to Montreal, confirmed. But it's not nothing, okay? John Tavares, the Habs are widely known to have been really in on him when he was going through that whole free agency period, and he wanted nothing to do with the Montreal Canadiens, okay? He ignored them, didn't even give them a sit-down meeting. So the fact that Eichel kind of like winks a little bit at the Habs is a good sign. But the next part of this equation is, do you guys think the Habs need a guy like Jack Eichel? Because, of course, every team on the surface, yes, of course. Who wouldn't take a Jack Eichel on their team, okay? But you have to give up good stuff to get good stuff. And in this case, where you're getting an incredibly valuable rare diamond, you're going to have to sell the farm. But here is the very, very fascinating kicker in this whole situation. Jack Eichel, he's not on the last year of his deal, or he doesn't have one more year after this one. After this season, Jack Eichel is under contract until 2025-2026. So you would get a ton of quality years of Jack Eichel in his prime. You wouldn't have to worry about him leaving next year, like with a lot of players, like with Laine in Columbus. And get this, the kicker here. His no-move clause doesn't kick in until 2022-2023. So in theory, if Montreal gives the best trade package to the Buffalo Sabres, then no matter what Eichel says, he could very well become a Montreal Canadian. Now, of course, there's logistics here, and in reality, he does have somewhat of a say here of where he wants to go and where he doesn't, but that's a big piece here, the no-move clause. And I know he makes $10 million a season, which is a lot, but if you're the Montreal Canadiens, it's not just the player you're getting, it's the jersey sales, the marketability. The Habs haven't had a superstar of this caliber in so long, and for one, I would love to see a guy like this be a Montreal Canadien. I can't remember the last true superstar that played for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, you could make an argument for PK Subban in his prime, but Eichel would be like that on steroids. Now, I'm not talking personality and being flamboyant and all this stuff, but pure play, he would be like the Montreal fans would adore him, and you would have one cornerstone piece that you could build your entire franchise around. Now, it's all fine thinking this up like it's sunshine and daydreams, but when you get down to the brass tacks, the Habs are tight on cap space, especially signing new guys in the offseason like Josh Anderson, Tyler Toffoli. We know they've got the two huge albatross contracts in Carey Price and Shea Weber, so that's going to be hard to maneuver for the Montreal Canadiens. But this is why I want to ask you guys this. Do you just stay the course and stick with your guys that you have here and just hope that Kotkaniemi, Suzuki can develop into all-star, superstar players for you? Or do you take a big swing and go all in for Jack Eichel? Because a guy that's got over 20 goals in every single season that he's played, he's only 24, just entering his prime. He scored 36 last year, 78 points in 68 games. I mean, if the Sabres were anywhere near a playoff spot, he would have been the Hart Trophy conversation. And then you put him in Montreal, where it's the high-pressure cooker. Okay, you have to perform under pressure, or else you're going to get absolutely flamed. I think Eichel would thrive in that environment. But as far as pieces that would have to be given up to get Jack Eichel, I want to make a video about this in NHL 21. What would it take to get Jack Eichel and really go in on here? I'm thinking some young pieces, because the Sabres, they're going to want to retool. Okay, I'm not going to say full rebuild because they've been doing that for 11 years, but retool with some young pieces, a la Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Nick Suzuki, we know he's pretty much an untouchable for the Montreal Canadiens, but I'm going to throw him in for argument's sake because it's Jack Eichel. You're not getting John Scott here. To me, Cole Caulfield, the Habs would be absolutely crazy to make him go anywhere. He's also an untouchable, but again, you got to throw his name in the conversation. And another guy like Ryan Poehling as well. These are the types of prospects that Buffalo is going to be looking at, on top of also draft picks, of course. First round draft picks, I would say it'll take 2. 3 is too much for my liking, but at the very least 2 draft picks for Jack Eichel, first rounders. And then it's also worth it to take a look at guys like Thomas Tatar and Danault, who are on expiring contracts, and honestly, every game they play with this team, it's looking more and more likely like they're going to be gone. They're not going to be wearing the CH at the end of the season. So I think if you can throw in 1 or 2 of those A to B level prospects that I mentioned, and throw in either a Danault or a Tatar on top of 2 first-round picks, I think that would be enough to sweeten the pot to get Jack Eichel. Like, Habs fans, I want to know your guys' opinion, and I'm very careful with these mock trades. I'm just throwing this out there. Let's say if the trade was Kotkaniemi, Danault, a first-round pick, and Ryan Poehling. What would you guys say to that? Again, I want to make another video about this. This is some super interesting stuff, but very, very fascinating topic. Super fun to talk about. I love making these kinds of videos, and Habs fans right now looking for a lifeline anywhere. What do you guys think about acquiring Jack Eichel in a trade? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like hockey content every single day, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and I will see you in the next one.